we did skip ahead a couple sections, and that's intentional. So again, method to my madness, it'll make sense when we learn our next section.
I'm still questioning if there is a method.
You're questioning my madness, I understand. And just a reminder, you guys are always welcome to come in during AR if you're struggling with any of this stuff. Sometimes when like the whole class is like, oh, this is, I got this and this makes sense to me, and then you don't want to speak up and say, hey, I'm not really getting it. It's perfectly okay. AR is a great time to come in and get some help and make sure you're understanding. This chapter will be our last chapter we'll actually test on before our exam. So probably like middle of next week is what I'm thinking, like 18, 19-ish. Thank you, sir.
Didn't we make this entire section last the rest of the week?
Yeah, there's a few sections we might end up doing 2 days. Well, the rest of the week is only,
Oh wait, that's only tomorrow and Thursday.
Friday.
I forgot.
Yeah. Okay. And then usually we review for 2 days, so yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
So, okay guys, stay with us here on the notes. Oh, I was gonna go grab them for you, Ian, and then I lost over there. That went okay? Is that far as you went? Yeah. Thank you. Alright. So guys, if we're factoring by a GCF, that's where we take out what's common among the two terms. So what number is common among those two terms in this first one? Guys, put other stuff away, your phones, your other things you guys are working on. Thank you. What's common, what number can go into both of those terms? Yep. We can take out a 3. So a 3 is common. And then if you look at the x's, we have to look and see what's the biggest x we can take out. So it's x to the second or x. So that one only has an x to give, so we can only take that single x out. So 3x is the GCF. So again, we did this, I believe, last Friday. So that's what we're dividing out of each of these terms. So this is not exactly what we did yesterday. Still factoring, but just a little bit different. So the 3's cancel. We get x squared over x is just a single x. And then negative 12 over 3. The x's cancel, so that's just negative 4. And hopefully you kind of notice these look different than what we did yesterday. So hopefully you realize there's 2 different types of factoring here. And so this type, we're going to just factor out that GCF. And I'll try to get you guys, like part of our review that I was talking about that we typically take a couple days for. One of the things we'll do is like a chart, to kind of like we did last chapter, to kind of keep all these things separate so you guys have something to study. All right, and in number 2, we want to see what's common among those two terms. Between the 8 and the 4, what's common? 4 going to 8? Yep, so we can pull that 4 out. And if you look, there's a y in both spots, so we're going to pull out that y. And I like showing that I'm dividing it out. You don't have to do that, but it kind of like visually helps you. Now guys, make sure you do show what you took out. I had some students that were just showing what they took out, or they just showed what was left over, so you have to show both. So we take that 4y and write it on the outside. So 8 divided by 4 is 2. The y's cancel, so just x. And then these cancel, so we just write minus 1. And we do need that as a placeholder. So make sure you write the number in front of it. Okay. All right, so that's kind of going to help us for what we're doing today. So the type of factoring we're going to do today is called grouping. And it sounds exactly like it is. We're going to group parts of the expression together and factor using GCFs. So just over time, I've realized that this section is nice to do before we do our next section. So that's why I moved it in this, like, our book puts it in a different spot. It's just, I mean, I've taught algebra for quite a few years, and it makes more sense to me to do it in this order, so that's why we're doing this. But so kind of trust me with that. Now, the ones you guys see right here are kind of strange. They have parentheses already, but we're going to factor them more. But if you look at them, so there's basically like two main terms here. There's smaller terms within that, but there's a term here, and then there's a term here. If you look at that, they both have an x minus or x plus 4 that's common. So this x plus 4 is kind of a new GCF. It's a new common factor. So I basically am going to say this and this are the same, so I'm going to pull that out. So I'm taking that and putting that in the front. Now, you don't have to show this, but I'll show you guys what kind of am I thinking here. This x plus 4 is the same in both of those spots, so I pulled it out. If I take it out, what am I left with? What are my leftovers? The 2x, and then the minus 3. So take a minute to look at what I just did there. So I took out that x plus 4 that was common, and then I said, well, once I take that x minus 4 away, what do they have left? Kind of like if I said, give me $2 today, we'll get donuts tomorrow, and then, you know, like I'd ask you how much you have left in your pocket. Like, do you have enough for lunch or whatever it happens to be? So I take that x plus 4 away, I put it in the front, and then I'm left with this 2x plus 3, or minus 3, sorry. Now, it's kind of weird because all of these have something that's common, and that's intentional so that we can get used to doing these types of problems. So, you guys look at this next one. Again, we have two terms here, like two big terms. There's smaller terms within that. But if you notice, between those two terms, what's common? The y minus 2. So I'm going to put that out in front. Now if I take that out, like I divide it out of there, if I divide it out, I'm left with that 3y squared plus 5. Now, just so you guys know, what we're going to do next, like when we get to the back side of the worksheet, we're going to end up using this idea. So just so you guys know, once you learn this part, the back side of the worksheet's going to go a little bit better. So it just, a lot of times this step is just kind of a weird one because we've never actually factored out more than one term. So why don't you guys try the next two if you haven't already. See if you guys can write those out and show me what they should look like. I know a few of you guys have already done it. Have to kind of sit tight while we just make sure you have the two terms. So, oh, this next couple are a little bit tricky. There should be a second term. Like, what's that negative? You can do that like negative. I realize I gave you guys two tough ones to try on your own. You got it though. Good job. You guys got it. Good work. These are tough, the ones I left you guys with. Most of you guys think you got it. So in this case, I'll talk about it right away because I think most of you guys are getting it. It's just, these are definitely a little bit tougher. So this m plus 5 is common. Or m minus 5, sorry. Now the issue is, in this case, it's still got to be like two terms when it's done. So I'm going to take that out, take that out. I'm left with the 4m, and then there's this minus sign. If I canceled something out, it's really like a minus 1. And we do have to write that as a placeholder. So make sure you include that minus 1 there. So yeah, you want to, so you pull that out, it's the common term, and then we're left with 4 minus 1. Same idea here in this one. I have two terms, or two big terms. This 2c minus 1. Now don't let this throw you off that there's two different variables. That might happen today a little bit. This is gone, this is gone. So we're left with a 5a, and then just plus, again, that canceled, so we have to write the +1 as like a placeholder. And most of you guys got that when you tried this, so very good. All right, so flip the page. We're going to talk about how we're going to use that now to factor bigger, tougher problems. So if you look at this next problem, you're going to be like, whoa, what just happened there? It just got really complicated. And it is, but we have this new method. So this factoring by grouping. The way we're going to do these types of, or the reason we're going to do these type of problems is when we have 4 terms. So if you notice, we have 4 terms here. That's your clue that you want to use grouping. So when they have 4 terms, it's probably a really good idea to use grouping. And what we're going to do is we're going to group the 4 terms into 2 groups. So kind of like if I said, hey, you 2 group up, you 2 group up, you know, put you guys in pairs. We're going to do the same thing with our little, our expression here. So we're going to group them into pairs of 2. Terms, we can do 2 and 2. Makes sense. It's like if I told you guys to get in groups of 2 and then there was, like there's an even number, we can all do groups of 2. It works nicely. It's 4 terms, 2 groups works fine. So once we get there, what we're going to do is kind of break this problem into 2 problems. So I'm going to look at just the first half, so you can kind of picture the second half being covered up. So we're going to find the GCF of the first pair. I'm going to say factor first pair by GCF. So we're going to look at just those first 2. So if you can try and ignore the second half. So I've used this before, like when I cover something up here. Let's see. I'm going to use the heart. Let's see if it'll cover it up. So if we can cover this up and ignore that part right now. So look at just that first factor. What can be factored out of the a squared minus 4? Yep, just an a. Just like our warm-up question. So a, we're going to take that out of the first 2 terms, just the first 2. So we're ignoring that second half, like almost like that other pair doesn't exist right now. So just like we did in the warm-up, I'm taking an a out of each of these. Just like we did last Friday. So a squared divided by a is just going to be a single a. And then a negative 4a divided by a, the a's are going to cancel, so I'll just get negative 4. So that's the first half of this problem. So I'm choosing just to group that half. I'm going to do the same thing with the second pair. So this time I'm going to drag my little heart over and ignore that half. Well, that works only sort of. Pretend. So we're going to look at that second half now. So what's common among 6a and 24? What can come out of 6a and 24? What do you think? Yeah? 6. Does 6 go into both? Yep. What kind of 6? Positive or negative? You do either. I'm probably going to say let's stick with a positive. So just so that I know that this still is addition problem, I'm going to take a plus 6 out. So out of that second half, I'm going to take out that GCF. I'm going to divide that out here. Now, if this problem is set up correctly, this will work really nicely. If it's not, then it's my fault. It doesn't work. So if it's the right type of problem, those will cancel. I'll be left with a. Negative 24 divided by 6 is going to be a negative 4. Now this problem looks like the one on the front side of the paper. So now this problem, if you guys look, we have the same thing twice. We have this a minus 4, that's now our new GCF. So now we're going to change this back into like the front side of the paper. So we're going to take that new GCF and put it on the outside, which is going to be like a 2-term. And then on the inside, we're going to leave the leftovers. Oops. So our new GCF is going to get pulled out, so that's the a minus 4. So this is gone, this is gone. It gets pulled out of both terms, just like divide it out. And then I'm left with an a plus 6. So that's the way we factor this problem. And now it kind of looks a little like yesterday's work. We just got there a little bit different way. All right, let's do one more together, and then we're going to break for a Kahoot. So and our Kahoot's going to cover GCF factoring, the factoring we did yesterday, and then also this new stuff. There's only one of the new ones on there. So, breaking it into pairs. I have 4 terms that tells me I have pairs of 2 and 2. Again, try to ignore that second half. We're looking at just the first half right now. And what can come out of these 2 only? So a y, but also what number? 3, right? 3y? So I'm going to take a 3y out of just these first 2 terms. I'm ignoring that second half there. So I'm dividing that out of those. 12 divided by 3 is 4, become y. 9 divided by 3 is 3, and then those y's would cancel. Then I have to look at the second half here. What's common among those 2? 8y and 6. They're even, so just a 2, right? And since they're all positive, I'm going to take out a positive 2, just kind of like, so I know the sign of that. There's no y that's common in this case. I'm just going to divide a 2 out. And I'll be left with 4y plus 3. So again, since I set this problem up to work, it works. Like, it's not like I could just randomly like give you a whole bunch of numbers and expect it always is going to work. It won't. Like, it's got to be the special type of problem that can be factored that way. So we have the same thing twice. And we take that out, and then we're left with 3y plus 2. Okay? So, you guys are going to probably want whiteboards for your Kahoot, so why don't you guys grab those. And before we start our Kahoot, I might just review the problems we did yesterday, because like Ali was missing